The story contains violence, consider before reading. I transmigrated into a book, into a beautiful passerby, my whole family was just abused to death by the supporting character. I should have waited 18 years later, cooperated with the male and female leads to expose the culprit. But my hands were itching. Before the male and female leads could even appear, I had already killed them all to the point that only the story's name remained in the book. According to the original, I appeared a total of 2 times. The first time was when my whole family was killed. I was hidden in a pile of firewood by my mother, watching my whole family die tragically, without even a single line of dialogue. The second time was 18 years later. The male and female leads, wanting to overthrow the supporting roles, came to me to be a witness to the massacre of the past. There was only one line of dialogue, "It's him, even if he turns to ashes, I will recognize him." That's right, I am the original owner, a genuine cannon fodder. At this moment, I inherited the original owner's short memories and mixed emotions of joy and sadness. My father was a district magistrate, and offended Yan Fan, the son of the Prime Minister. Early this morning, Yan Fan led a pack of hunting dogs, and stormed into my house. They dragged my father out, cut off his tongue, chopped off his arms and legs, and stuffed him into a jar, leaving only his head. Then, in front of my father, they took turns humiliating my mother and sister, using the tip of their knives to cut off the parts they found interesting. Finally, he boiled my baby brother alive. My father's eyes almost split open, he grunted and spat out blood, struggling crazily in the jar. Yan Fei laughed heartily, reached out and patted my father's face. "Lord Song, enjoy it slowly." He then led the hunting dogs and left arrogantly. When I transmigrated, it was just as Yan Fei left. I crawled out from the pile of firewood and instinctively ran back to my room. The air was filled with the smell of blood. The corpse was no longer intact. On the ground besides blood, there were only limbs, bones and scraps of flesh. The baby was lying in the pot, a hole was dug into his stomach, his intestines were exposed all around. After sympathizing with the original owner, I immediately, "Tisk Ed, look at this method, how crude. Cruel. One look and you can tell he hasn't undergone professional training. He's not even as good as a butcher, he has no sense of aesthetics. Bao Ding Jian Yo?" Ugh. The original owner's father was still alive, he was groaning in the overturned jar. "Dad! Dad!" I screamed twice, getting into the act. The original owner's father couldn't speak, he just looked around the blood-stained room, his eyes filled with pain, anger, and determination. The bottom of his eyes were bloodshot. He looked at me pleadingly, then looked at the bloody knife on the ground. I knew he was begging for death, and I knew even more that in this era, in this state, he basically couldn't live, so I picked up the knife on the ground and dragged it in front of him. He closed his eyes. "Don't worry, Dad, I will avenge my family." This was the only thing I could promise. Killing people, I'm very good. The original owner's father was already desperately waiting to die. Hearing me say that, he suddenly opened his eyes, looked at me and shook his head. I was very familiar with this scene, it was often shown on TV. He wanted me to live, he didn't want me to throw eggs at rocks. "All right, I will live well, I won't take revenge anymore." He calmed down. The first person I killed was the original owner's father. "My name is Song Shaji. Our organization has 24 assassins, named after the 24 solar terms. I am ranked 10th. It is not because my skills are inferior to others, but because I am an artist by birth, studying painting, pursuing beauty too much, and handling the consequences very thoughtfully. I am afraid that it will not look good. Unlike Lap Xian, Kintrap and the others, they only know how to complete tasks, do whatever is convenient. Life not only has the task at hand, but also poetry and faraway places, which is eating and drinking, enjoying life. I like this world. Ancient, not real. No tasks, only faraway places. The only thing I am not satisfied with is. This shell is too small and too young, even holding a knife is tiring. Cannot bear my peerless beauty. Also cannot bear my extremely beautiful killing technique. In the original. After witnessing the murder of his entire family, the original owner suffered from severe post-traumatic stress disorder, fled, and then disappeared without a trace. Blood flowed like a river in the house, and fresh blood stained the ground red. The neighbors discovered something was wrong, and quickly reported it to the authorities, helping to clean up the scene and bury the dead. Many years later, the resentment in the house was so heavy that the flowers and grass that grew were all red, and the house was abandoned. Now, I leisurely walked out of the crime scene and headed straight to the backyard. Holding a shovel, I dug under the big locust tree and dug up a small iron box filled with gold. The original owner's father was a clean official. Clean official doesn't mean he didn't have any side income, it was just a small amount. I hugged the small iron box and headed towards the capital. A month later, I became Yan Fei's younger sister. Yan Fei's mother came to the temple to burn incense, and as soon as she saw me, forehead dotted with cinnabar, sitting on a cushion fiddling with a string of beads, reciting the Diamond Sutra, her face like jade. The abbot said I was a reincarnated Buddhist. They searched for a long time before finding me, but unfortunately I was reincarnated as a girl in this life, and could not stay in the temple for long. When Yan Fei's mother heard this, she was overjoyed, saying she was willing to adopt me as her adopted daughter, and treat me well. The abbot asked me if I was willing to follow Madame Yan. I said, Madame Yan had a predestined relationship with Buddha. Madame Yan was very happy. In this era, people believe in ghosts and gods. In noble families, there are many people who say Buddha but have a snake in their heart. The more kind and compassionate they appear, the more cruel they are, and the more they like to burn incense and worship Buddha. Madame Yan is one of them. For so many years, she has helped her son wipe his butt many times, and her hands are covered in blood, just like her son. Half a year later, Yan Fei returned. As soon as he entered the city gate, he heard many people talking to him. There was a new, little Buddha girl in the house. Not only did Madame Yan pamper her to the core, she bought her all kinds of precious clothes, wishing she could pick stars from the sky for her. The emperor and empress in the palace also liked her very much. After only entering the palace twice, they were already appointed as county princesses, and gifts flowed into the Yan residence like water. Someone teased, "Young Master Yan, your position is about to be shaken." Yan Fei was calm. I've been wandering around outside all year round. Having someone to be filial to my parents on my behalf is naturally a good thing. That night, the Yan mansion held a dinner party. The Prime Minister invited several close ministers and their families, saying that Yan Fan had returned, so everyone gathered together. I sat next to Madame Yan. Wearing a crimson brocade woven by Jiangnan, wearing precious jewelry, with a cinnabar mole on my forehead, my left hand fondling a jade-colored Bodhi seed bead, like the kind-hearted boy beside Guanyin Bodhisattva. This was the second time I had met Yan Fan, the last time I had only seen his back. This man. To be honest, I was very surprised. He was unexpectedly handsome, tall, with a face like jade, and a straight nose. If he stood still, he would be truly majestic and imposing. However, as soon as he walked, his physical flaws were revealed. His right leg was crippled. I remembered the description of him in the book. Genius, extraordinary talent, almost demonic intelligence, the world called him the world's #1 young master. Unfortunately, he was a pervert. The pervert walked towards me, clasped his hands in salute, his eyes filled with affection. I have met this younger sister before. My fingertips that were fiddling with the Bodhi beads tightened slightly. Rumor has it that Yan Fei was extremely intelligent, Could it be that he had guessed who I was by looking at the appearance of the original owner's family? I smiled, silently waiting for him to continue. Seeing that I did not have any big reaction when he said that he had met me before, his smile became even more leisurely, slowly saying, "If we don't meet on the top of Kunlun Mountain, then we will meet again under the moon at Guanghan Palace." Excerpt from Li Bai's poem. This was praising my beauty. The guests also echoed his words, saying that I had the appearance of a celestial being. I stood up, the jade-colored Bodhi beads wrapped around my fingers, clasped my hands in a Buddhist-style salute to him. Younger sister greets elder brother. He laughed heartily, very arrogantly. Throughout the banquet, the melodious sound of flutes and zither, the clinking of wine glasses. The guests were either praising the Prime Minister or praising Yan Fei. The Prime Minister was the head of the imperial court, one person below and above 10,000 people. Although Yan Fei relied on his father's power to rise to the clouds, whether it was in guessing the emperor's will or in terms of talent, he was far superior to his father. The emperor loved Yan Fei, showing it on his face, even intending to take advantage of Yan Fei's return to marry the princess he loved the most to him. Yan Fei lowered his eyes and drank wine. The corners of his lips smiled, his deep eyes bottomless, seemingly not hearing everyone's congratulations. Only occasionally did he raise his head, his eyes scrutinizing me. Madame Yan leaned over, blocking Yan Fei's gaze from looking at me, then glared at him in warning. Yan Fei laughed heartily, beckoning to the hunting dog behind him. The hunting dog leaned down, putting his ear close to Yan Fei's lips. Yan Fei raised his hand to cover his mouth. I couldn't see what they said. But after he finished speaking, he smiled and raised his wine cup towards me from afar. After the banquet, the guests left one after another. 7 or 8 scantily clad beauties crowded together, running to Yan Fei's side. "Yan Lang, you're back. I miss you to death. Every day you're not here, I research new techniques, just waiting for you to come back to unlock it. Tonight, you must love me a lot. Yan Lang, there's me too, there's me too." Her voice was soft, as if she was about to drip water. Yan Fei was drunk, hugging one person after another. I knew who they were. In Yan Fei's courtyard, there were more than 10 concubines. They fought fiercely on a regular basis, they died, were crippled, they couldn't give birth, all kinds of forms were there. Compared to the palace fighting in the imperial palace, it was no less. I glanced at them a couple more times, and Madame Yan immediately felt guilty and said, "The little child is naughty, little Buddha girl, don't laugh at me." I fondled the Bodhi seed beads and smiled, saying, "Brother is a free and easygoing person, this is his true nature." A cup of tea later, I had just entered my courtyard when I saw a white shadow pass by the wall. Creak, the window of the room where I usually meditated opened without any wind. The lanterns hanging in the courtyard flickered twice, then went out at the same time. The courtyard was pitch black, with only the faint moonlight in the sky. The trees, flowers, houses, and pavilions on the ground, in the dark night, looked like monsters baring their fangs. Little Buddha. Buddha girl, I'm scared. The little maid behind me shivered. I glanced at her, fiddled with the Bodhi beads with both hands, and walked straight to the middle of the courtyard. Bang! The bedroom door made a loud noise. A person, or demon, wearing a white hemp robe, with long hair covering his face, rushed out from inside, aiming straight at me. Completely out of instinct, I used a little force on my right hand. The rosary string broke, and 3 rosary beads were held between my fingers, and then I waved my hand. 2 S rang out at the same time. The first sound was long and shrill, hoarse, and it was the little maid holding her head and running away. The second sound was that of the fake ghost. He fell to the side, foaming at the mouth, revealing half of his face, with 3 rosary beads stuck in his chest. The rosary was embedded 3 centimeters deep into the flesh. The jade color of the Bodhi seed was dyed red. I chanted Amitabha Buddha, walked over, and squatted beside him. I stretched out my hand and poked the wound on his chest. He was in so much pain that he gritted his teeth, inhaling but unable to exhale. What do you want to do? A compassionate monk. Who said I was a monk? I smiled and asked back, calling me little Buddha girl is because I practiced in my previous life, and in this life the Buddha Dharma is boundless. And you are a ghost. What need is there for compassion? My compassion is to defeat demons and save all living beings. The Bodhi seed was pulled out of the flesh by me, and the ghost cried out miserably, you Daemonis. If you want to kill me, then kill me. I ignored him, my fingertips pinched the rosary, and wiped it on his white linen clothes. The jade rosary, after being stained with blood, had turned a rosy pink color. It was quite a sight. I started to pick out the second bead, the third bead. Sweat poured down from the demon's neck. At some point, he seemed to have reached his limit, bursting out with a violent force, roaring, "Who exactly are you? Why did you come to the Yen family?" I put away the beads, glanced at the courtyard door from the corner of my eyes, stood up in a flash, and turned around. Of course it's the beautiful little Buddha girl, the one your madam loves the most. My red dress fluttered like a blooming flower. My smile was extremely innocent and pure. A dry cough sounded from behind. Yen Fan was surrounded by a group of beautiful concubines, standing at the courtyard door, like the moon surrounded by stars. His previous drunken appearance had completely disappeared. "Why did you come here, elder brother? I heard that there are ghosts causing trouble here." "It's over, the ghost has gone to reincarnation." I kicked the hemp-clad ghost on the ground. The ghost didn't move. Yen Pian's eyes flashed with surprise, his gaze fell on the rosary in my palm. "Why did you choose the Yen family?" His voice was a bit cold. "Under the heavens, other than the imperial palace, is there any place better than the Yen family?" I lowered my head to tidy up my clothes. Someone like me doesn't do hard work, and there are no temples to offer alms to, so I have to find a rich family to live in. That's right, I just recited the Ksitigarbha Sutra for him, 1,000 taels of silver, remember to pay. This sentence had the hidden meaning. I know he is your person, I have saved him, you have to pay. Yen Pian didn't comment, his eyes were filled with interest. Okay. The imperial family's work was mainly fast. The second day after Yen Pian returned, the imperial edict granting the marriage was issued. The long-winded compliments, such as praising the princess as a virtuous person, praising Yen Fei as a beautiful orchid, as if in heaven and on earth, there was no more well-matched couple than them. The Yen family was overjoyed to receive the imperial edict, as if they had received a golden bun, and generously took out a large banknote to invite the eunuch who delivered the imperial edict to drink tea. However, as soon as the eunuch who delivered the imperial edict left, the entire family, whether it was Chief Yen, or Madame Yen, or Yen Fei, all had a look of decline on their faces. I raised my eyebrows. That princess, I had met her before, although she was a bit arrogant, she was truly a gem, and her appearance was also beautiful. As for Yen Fei, who was talented and cunning like a demon, what about him? He had no military achievements, nor any political achievements. Furthermore, he had a crippled leg. Just for this reason alone, His Majesty should not marry the princess to him. Not to mention, in Niam Fian's courtyard there are more than 10 concubines, every day they compete for favor, noisy and bustling. Half a day later. I already knew the reason why the emperor was in such a hurry to marry the princess to Yen Fan. I heard from Lady Yen that the princess was pregnant. 3 months pregnant. If she didn't marry him, her belly would be exposed. The person who had an affair with the princess was just an ordinary guard. His family was poor, but he was also handsome. The princess wanted to promote him like a rocket, jumping 5 ranks in half a month or so, but even if he jumped 5 ranks, he would still not be worthy of our noble princess. The emperor's thoughts were much simpler: whoever ruined the princess's reputation, kill. The princess was probably really moved, declaring that she wanted to die with the guard. At worst, 1 body and 2 lives, the whole family of 3 reunited in the afterlife. The emperor loved the princess. He did not want to marry the princess to a guard, but he did not want to see the princess commit suicide because of love, and he was also afraid that after the princess got married, because her husband's family was too poor, people would look down on her. After many parties argued and considered carefully, he decided to marry the princess to Yan Fan. Firstly, Yan Fan was the only son of the Yan family, the son of the prime minister, a noble status. Secondly, the Yan family was the most obedient dog in the empire, knowing the times the best. The princess marrying there, what should be said, what should not be said, absolutely would not make mistakes. Thirdly, Yan Fan was a disabled person. Being able to marry the princess could be considered as the emperor's grace. I almost burst out laughing. Yan Fan was the biggest villain in the original work. How could he wear a big green hat, swallowing such a big anger? On the day the princess got married, the 10 miles of the capital were all dowry. Everyone was talking. The Yan family was so powerful, a crippled man was actually able to marry the emperor's most favored daughter. No one saw it. Under the gorgeous wedding dress, the princess's unwilling face, her phoenix eyes swept past Yan Fan's leg, full of malice and contempt. No one saw it either. The smile did not reach Yan Fan's eyes. All his gentleness and smile exuded a bone-chilling coldness. That night, when the wedding banquet ended and the guests left one by one, Yan Fei finally had to return to the bridal chamber. Lord Yan specially reminded him, "The princess is favored by the emperor, you must not show any attitude towards her, and you must not leave the bridal chamber. I have already had someone prepare the bedding in the closet, you can spread out a mat and sleep on the floor." Yan Fei said yes. However, that night, he gagged the princess and raped her. The woman was less than 4 months pregnant, the fetus had just formed, and the bed was covered in blood. The maidservant that the princess brought with her was also gagged. As for the guard she brought with her, she had long been poisoned with a glass of wine before entering the bridal chamber. I sat on the roof eavesdropping. I saw someone climbing the wall, and I secretly looked towards the bridal chamber. I saw Yan Fei suddenly push open the window and press the princess against the window, allowing the person climbing the wall to clearly see this unacceptable scene. Seeing the person climbing the wall, she was terrified and in pain, but did not dare to jump down to save the person in her dream. She could only cover her mouth and try to hold back. Seeing the person in black flashing from the corner of the yard, using her lightness skill to grab the person on the roof. Seeing Yan Fan grabbing the princess's hair, forcing her to face the person. "Look. This is the man you like. Seeing you being bullied by me, she did not even dare to fart. Coward. She risked her life in vain, she must protect your life in front of the emperor. The person who dares to wear a green hat for me, has not been born yet in this life. Since she has been born, she can only be a dead person." Along with the 2 words, "dead person," uttered. Crack! The person's head was already twisted off, drooping helplessly. Yan Fan said expressionlessly, "This person assassinated the princess, his crimes were heinous. Drag him out and hang him at the back door of the Yan residence, to serve as a warning to others." The person in black dragged the person out like dragging a corpse. The princess's face was pale, tears smeared her makeup, her eyes filled with cruelty. Humph, how interesting. I jumped down from the roof. For a moment, I felt Yan Fan's eyes fall on me. 14 The next day. I deliberately went around to the back door. This place was the special passageway for dumping sewage and feces. The princess's dream man was indeed hanging here. He was dressed in black, wearing black boots, there was no sword on his waist except for the sword sheath, nothing else. There were quite a few people watching. Last night, I didn't hear any movement. Yan Mansion dealt with the assassin, it was really fast, neat, and swift. Look at that face, so handsome, being an assassin. Is there something wrong with your brain? How dangerous. Isn't being a gigolo more enjoyable? There really is something wrong with your brain. On the princess's wedding night, without even thinking about it, the security was tight. Did he think everyone was drunk? My focus was also on that face. He was really handsome. If it were in modern times, he would definitely be the young fresh meat that the capitalists were promoting enthusiastically. The princess's taste in aesthetics is not bad. I smacked my lips. TSK, TSK, what a pity. What are you smacking your lips about? Yan Fan suddenly appeared. Handsome. I told the truth, then changed the subject, but not as handsome as you. Yan Fan laughed. If we ignore his lame leg, this smile is worthy of being called a beauty that topples kingdoms and cities. Do you know who he is? Why don't you recite the Ksitigarbha Sutra to save him? This guy still remembers the story of me killing one of his subordinates and tricking him out of 1,000 taels of silver. I looked at the hanging corpse again and felt that 1,000 taels of silver was too little. Life cannot be satisfied with just silver, there must also be gold. Lots and lots of gold. Paying is a matter of saying, 1,000 taels of gold, no bargaining. Do I look like a good person? Yan Fan's eyes slightly raised, his eyes filled with laughter. 1,000 taels of gold is not much, but he is not worth it. How about you act spoiled? How about I give you 10,000 gold? 10,000 gold? I was slightly moved. I glanced at the charming and beloved princess, who was currently being supported by 2 maids, hurriedly walking this way. I raised my eyebrows. Yan Fan was truly worthy of the title of scheming like a demon. Just by raising my eyebrows, I could guess who I was seeing. So, he smiled and returned to the original topic, and that guy outside the door, he was exposed to the sun and dew for 3 days, then dragged out to the deserted cemetery to feed the dogs. You dare! As soon as Yan Fei finished speaking, the princess's shout rang out. Yan Fei slowly turned around, looked at the princess who had been raped by him last night, and now had difficulty walking, and asked with a smile, Princess, do you think your husband doesn't dare? Just one counter question, and the princess's aura had already decreased by 3 parts, but she didn't back down, she just glared, puffed her cheeks, and stubbornly looked at Yan Fei. You treat me like this, aren't you afraid that I'll tell the emperor? Tell me. The emperor who granted me the marriage only said that you were gentle and virtuous, beautiful and intelligent, but he didn't say that you had an affair with someone else and were pregnant with an illegitimate child. Last night there was so much blood, I thought it was virgin blood. The princess was so angry that she was speechless. Outside the back door, the onlookers were still gossiping and making noise. From their angle, they could see Yan Fan and me, but not the princess. Of course, they couldn't hear the conversation between Yan Fan and the princess. If the princess wants to make a fuss in the Golden Palace because of an assassin, then go ahead and make a fuss, Yan absolutely won't stop her. After speaking, Yan Fan waved his sleeves and left. The princess stood where no one could see, tears silently falling. 1,000 gold, right? She suddenly spoke. I realized that these words were directed at me, wanting me to help the person in her heart pass away. But I only needed to act spoiled a little, a few sentences and I could earn 10,000 gold. Wouldn't that be easier than chanting the Ksitigarbha Sutra? The price has increased, 10,000 gold. Deal. The princess agreed very happily. Damn this feudal society. Hey! The hateful power of money. The Ksitigarbha Sutra has more than 17,000 words. I fiddled with the rosary, silently recited the first 300 words, finished the job, and received the money. Compassionate Buddha. Buddha, I am enlightened. Being your lackey, or to put it bluntly, a swindler, is indeed easier than being an assassin. And it's also leisurely. The princess's miscarriage didn't cause any turmoil in the palace. Only the empress sent someone to deliver some tonics, ginseng, red dates, wolfberries, deer antlers, then sent a message to Yan Fei, very tactfully. The general idea was, that thing is good, but it cannot harm the body. The hidden meaning was, you caused the princess to miscarry, the emperor and I do not blame you. After all, it is an illegitimate child. If it is lost, then it is lost, but don't be so reckless in the future. The princess angrily smashed 8 vases, 16 teacups, 32 porcelain bowls. Then beat 2 close maids, 6 ordinary maids, then ordered someone to call all of Yan Fei's concubines to kneel in 2 rows. The princess was arrogant, not caring about anyone. She used a whip to whip everyone. Some people were disfigured on the spot, some had their skin and flesh peeled off, blood was everywhere. In the courtyard, there were miserable screams. I was in the small Buddhist hall cultivating my inner strength and mind method. My ears and eyes were very sharp, but she made so much noise that I couldn't stand it. The smell of blood wafted up, almost going crazy. How rude. I patted the futon, picked up the rosary beads beside me, and angrily walked out. Oh. As expected of Yan Fan's CP, concubine Hua only had 1 foot of red, but she was already 10 feet of red. The concubines cried miserably, falling left and right. Seeing me was like seeing a life-saving straw. One by one they cried out, "Miss, save me. Little Buddhist woman, save me. In this life I have only avenged others, not saved people." I fiddled with the rosary beads. Princess is too noisy, disturbing my pure cultivation. The princess didn't know what medicine she had eaten. She scolded whatever she saw. You're cultivating nonsense. Don't think I don't know, in this Yan mansion, even a female cat is involved with Yan Fan. What are you dressing like? If you're not seducing men, then what are you? If you really want to practice, then shave your head and find a nunnery to enter. What are you pretending for here? Everyone in the Yan family knew my supernatural status here. Everyone's eyes flashed with surprise, and they quickly lowered their heads, eyes looking at their noses, and noses looking at their hearts. I smiled and walked in front of the princess. Princess, you're not good. Buddha girl, I don't like it. The last 4 words were said especially slowly. So what if you don't like it? The princess rolled her eyes, trying to maintain her superior demeanor. If you don't like it, I'll take back the sutras for the person in your heart. I smiled harmlessly. That's right, if princess is free, you can go take a look. See what? The princess really didn't understand. See the person in your heart, see what it means to not be able to ascend to heaven, not be able to descend to earth. I smiled indifferently, turned around and walked out. The princess's expression immediately changed. She was such a woman. For many years, although she had been in a high position, she had relied on her parents for everything. Once her parents had little contact with her and cut off all contact, she was just a paper tiger. All her pride was punctured. Song Xiaji, do you think I'm afraid of you? You're a swindler pretending to be a god and a ghost. A swindler. A demoness. That afternoon, I was swinging on the swing while nibbling on melon seeds. Miss, the princess really went to the deserted cemetery. Even the servants couldn't stop her. She originally wanted to ask someone to carry the body back, but she heard that the Neum family wouldn't allow it, and they wouldn't allow the body either. Isn't the body a dead person? The person is already dead. How can I not let him in? A person who has been dead for 10 days, the internal organs have already rotted to the peak. These past few days have been raining heavily and the sun is scorching hot. According to the environment in which the body was preserved, I'm afraid that now not only is there pus oozing out, the face is swollen, and the smell is foul, but the abdomen is also swollen, the skin and muscles are like they are inflated. It is the giant phenomenon that forensic doctors fear the most when encountering. I smiled mysteriously, using my finger to lightly touch the maid's lips. Buddha said, "Cannot say." It was clearly just a normal light touch, but the maid seemed to be enlightened, her eyelashes trembled slightly, her eyes flashed with light, her entire body seemed to be bathed in warm sunlight. The power of faith. Outside the courtyard came a commotion. Yan Fei's concubines rushed to thank me, saying that if it weren't for me, they would have been beaten to death by the princess. "Let me in." "Fuck. Let me in, I came first, I am the most sincere. I brought the most gifts, I am the most sincere. The little Buddha girl definitely likes me the most. What's the use of many gifts? A bunch of worthless things. What I brought are Dong Zhuo and Jin Zhu, small but precious." The maid glanced outside. Ordinary people. Is my young lady such an ordinary person? Yes. I continued, "Tell them to leave the gifts, you don't need to come in, besides, tell them, I have received their sincerity." The maid's eyes were filled with the image of an idol collapsing. I rarely had a trace of pity, and couldn't bear to see her despair. "You see gold and silver as ordinary things, as things outside the body. I see this gold and silver, it is the best thing in the world, it can buy rice and noodles for the hungry, buy cotton coats for the cold, can buy medicine for the sick, can send children to school." The maid once again looked at me in admiration, thinking that I was robbing the rich to give to the poor, practicing chivalry. I smiled. I was poor, hungry, cold, sick, had to go to school, had to practice martial arts, extremely in need of money. The princess returned with disheveled hair and a body covered in grease. It didn't look like she had just gone to see a corpse, but like someone had thrown a bucket of red and yellow water on her. After returning to the Niam family, the first thing she did was not to bathe and change her clothes, but to run to me, slap herself in the face, and kneel down to beg, "Little Buddha, I was wrong. I shouldn't have said that to you, you are holy. Please, spare me." I dodged her two hands that were about to hug my legs. "TSK. So dirty. So dirty and smelly. Did you touch that corpse?" I asked. "Yes." The princess's head was sticky, her face was full of terror, her lips were as white as paper, her expression was like a mad person, her two hands waved and drew a large ball, then made an exploding motion, boom. I understood. Was hit by a giant explosion phenomenon. The red and yellow things on her body were the corpse's fat. So disgusting. I took a few steps back without leaving a trace. "Please, save me. I know I was wrong, just name your price. I don't want to become like him. I cast a golden statue for you, built a temple for you, and enjoyed the incense of all generations?" The princess said tremblingly. She thought that the person in her heart had turned into a giant because of my curse. I looked at the dirt on her face and curled my lips. "What does it taste like?" She was stunned, salty. Immediately after that, she vomited. Ha! This person is really unlucky, originally only intended to scare her, but unexpectedly she ate corpse fat. Extremely poisonous. Definitely can't be saved. What a pity for her gold, silver, and jewels. The person is dead, the money hasn't been spent yet. Go take a bath, change your clothes. You have the royal aura to protect your body, it's fine, at most you'll see a ghost, have a nightmare, and be weak for 10 days or half a month, just endure a little and it will pass, die. Well, it's best to return to the palace. The emperor has a true dragon protecting his body. If you stay close to him, it's good to get some dragon energy. Meaning stay away from me. Don't infect me. Also, donate your assets, I will do good deeds on your behalf, and pray to Buddha. The princess's face turned even paler, she twisted her robe, what if you don't make it? I chanted Amitabha Buddha, then your family's fate is over. In ancient times, a daughter marrying out was like pouring water away. The royal family was no exception. If a princess wanted to return to the palace, she had to go through a review process and the emperor would give permission before she could return. This time, the princess wanted to return because she wanted to borrow the dragon's energy and dispel the filth, but what reason did she dare to say? She could only say that she missed her father and mother. But in the emperor's eyes, the princess's request to return was nothing more than acting spoiled. Therefore, the review process was delayed. They even sent someone from the palace to deliver the message, since you've married into the Niam family, then be a good daughter-in-law of the Niam family. The bathwater in the princess's room was poured out basin after basin. The first day was the most stinky, whether it was her skin or her hair, it was in direct contact with the dead man's fat, those basins of bathwater were like diluted dead man's fat. It took 5 or 6 buckets of water for the smell to go away. The princess sniffed her arm, why do I still smell so bad? The maidservant leaned in close to sniff, it doesn't smell bad, it smells so good. Princess, it's probably just a psychological thing. She didn't dare tell the princess, the smell wasn't coming from her arm, but from her mouth. The second day, the princess felt that her body smelled a little more, so she started bathing again. 5 or 6 buckets of water later, she finally realized that the smell wasn't her skin, but her mouth. She invited the doctor to take a look, the doctor couldn't see the problem, saying it was due to food accumulation. Someone, quickly go ask the little Buddha girl what to do? I was taking inventory of the property the princess donated to me, although she only donated a quarter, but I have to say, it was really a lot of money. Just a quarter of the land and house deed alone, was already 10 times my total assets, a county princess. The plan I came up with was, wash your intestines. Drink a lot of water, then vomit, wait until all the dirty things are vomited out, then naturally the smell will go away. So, the princess spent the whole day washing her intestines, drinking water and then vomiting. Her small face was as pale as paper, her eye sockets were red. In the evening, I leisurely walked to her yard, and gave her a mint leaf. Suck it in, it will feel much better. Mint leaf? It has been consecrated. The moment the princess heard consecration, her eyes lit up, and she quickly opened her mouth to swallow it. The third day, the fourth day. The stench on the princess continued to spread. First, a black dot appeared on her stomach, like an ulcer, occasionally oozing out some black liquid. It was painless, 80% of the body's stench came from this place. The princess tried to squeeze it out, thinking that if she squeezed out all the black liquid, the stench would go away. However, how could she squeeze it out? On the contrary, the ulcer, from a black dot, became as big as a fist, then as big as a hand. It was pitch black, the skin gradually hardened, like a piece of burnt flesh. The princess sent her servants to come find me once, twice, 3 times, the steps of my small courtyard were almost trampled. I was practicing martial arts in the small Buddhist hall. Martial arts outside the family, little Jean Na. Tell the outside world, praying for the princess, don't disturb her. Doctors from the pharmacies in the capital came one after another, none of them had ever encountered this situation, they all shook their heads, saying that their medical skills were poor, it was best to invite the imperial physician to come and take a look. So, that very day, the emperor learned that the princess had been doused with dead body fat, and thinking back to the princess's request to return to the palace to keep company 2 days ago, he was truly indescribably angry. According to the stammering words of the imperial physicians, the princess's illness was unprecedented, it was very likely that she was possessed by a ghost. The emperor already believed in these things. Hearing this, he couldn't bear it. His beloved daughter for many years was being disturbed by evil spirits, and she still wanted to enter the palace. What an ungrateful person! On the 5th day, the entire body of the princess, from her hair to her pores, emitted a foul stench. The blackened area had spread to her entire abdomen. Now she didn't dare to move. The skin of her belly was both crispy and hard. With just a slight movement, cracks would appear. What was even more horrifying was that her belly was still bulging. Before, she didn't like anything, and if she was slightly displeased, she would beat and scold the maids. Now, she was like a pitiful bug, lying motionless on the bed, tears streaming down her face, eating and drinking sloppily, and saving when she could. During this period of time, Yan Fei had been scavenging for money, not coming home for several days. Today, when he finally came back, he held his nose, frowned, glanced at the princess, and ran to find me. His tone was extremely disgusted. It's almost done. If this continues, the Yan residence will stink to the point where no one will be able to eat. Not to mention the people in the house, even the people around will have to stay 3 feet away. I was very surprised. You think I did it? Yan Pian was even more surprised than me. It's not you, could it be a ghost? He pretended to be a wise man and didn't talk about the dark side. I, Yan Pian, in this life, only believe in myself, don't believe in ghosts or gods. Quickly give her the antidote, just punish her a little to show her face. I understood. No wonder the princess was so seriously ill. But Prime Minister Yan and Madame Yan didn't make any move. It turned out they thought I had poisoned her. As long as I withdrew my hand, she would be cured immediately. There's no antidote. I said very decisively. She accidentally drank a dead person's fat and was poisoned by a corpse. Prepare for her funeral. Yan Pian wanted to say something but stopped, his expression complicated. That night, the Yan mansion mobilized people all night long. They checked everyone in the mansion from top to bottom. Anyone with wounds on their hands or bodies, who had come into contact with the corpse poison or the black water on the princess in the past few days, were dragged out. This group of people, just like Yan Fan thought, were all infected with the corpse poison. Yan Fan planned to take them and the princess to a building on the outskirts of the capital. It sounded good. Send them there to recuperate. It was quiet there. Good for recuperation. In reality, who didn't know, this was a disguised quarantine. It was equivalent to giving up. Before the princess left the mansion, I visited her for the last time. The burned area on her body had already taken up about 40%. From the neck down, except for the limbs, everything was pitch black. I fingered the rosary with one hand, covered my nose with the other, and stood from afar looking at her. Her facial features were indeed exquisite. Her skin was pale white, giving off a strange beauty. Is the princess well? The 4 words of questioning were pleasant to the ears. You slut! The princess didn't dare to turn her neck at all, only her eyes were directed towards me. The bottom of her eyes were filled with anger. It was all your scheme. I smacked my lips. I don't know your lover. You two are willing to be together. Didn't you hide it very well before? You are unlucky, marrying into the Yan residence, meeting that crazy Yan Fan. If it were someone else, who wouldn't help you hide it, only Yan Fan has a heavy taste, seeing women, he's like a male dog, TSK TSK, TSK TSK. It's also your fault. What trouble did you cause with Yan Fan's concubines? You're loud, you beat and scold at the slightest provocation. Knowing that there are cultivators in the house, you still made a big fuss, almost causing me to go astray. Tell me, do you deserve to die? My voice was extremely gentle. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. Just because of that little thing? I made a fuss over you? Ed, look at your comprehension ability. I almost went crazy. You still see it as a small matter. As I spoke, I walked in front of her and put away the rosary. She was so scared that her face looked like she had seen a ghost, her pupils contracted, and her throat swallowed several times. What do you want to do? Don't be afraid, I'm a good person. I took out a small porcelain bottle from my pocket, poured out all the mint pills, and threw them onto the bed. Then I sat down beside her, my fingertips brushing her neck, and said seriously, I'm a person, I hate the most being fated but not meant to be, so I specially prepared a pair of Huangquan clothes for you too. Look, you're going to drink his dead man's fat and go. As long as you remember this taste, you two can still meet again in the next life. My fingertips slid down, gliding over her pale, bloodless neck, then slid to her charred skin. There were many small cracks. Just a little force, and boom. The princess obviously thought of this possibility as well, her lips trembling. Don't move, don't kill me. I beg you, whatever you want, I'll give it to you, I smiled seductively. Money? You've already donated. The princess hurriedly said, no, I still have some. I'll give it all to you this time, I swear. I found an easy spot on her waist. Don't be afraid, I'm very gentle. Knock knock knock, knock knock knock. I tapped the same spot repeatedly, making a small circle, then gently pried it open. Black liquid gushed out. The stench was strong. I held my breath, used a silk handkerchief to cover my nose, then used a small porcelain jar to catch the black water, slowly preaching to her, the so-called, a gentleman loves money, but must obtain it through the right way. I am a dignified little Buddha, how could I do such a thing as threatening and deceiving? Moreover, to put it bluntly, are 10 princesses worth 1 yen mansion? I am after all the eldest daughter of the yen mansion, what belongs to the yen mansion, is mine. She did not feel any pain, the germ, in order to reproduce better, had blocked her pain-sensing nerves. But at this moment, she was sweating profusely, clearly in great pain. She struggled. You are an outsider, raised, the small porcelain jar was already full. I closed the lid, took 2 steps back, propped up my chin, and enjoyed her painful appearance for a bit. The frowning beauty was really beautiful, ending her life, stopping at this moment was also very good. I turned around and walked out. Yan Fei's handsome face suddenly appeared in my mind. If it had a little more brokenness, wouldn't it be more beautiful than the princess's? The small, stinky porcelain vase suddenly became fragrant. That's right, do you like Yan Fei? Or, I'll give you another pair of clothes. In the next life, the 3 of you will be together, okay? I winked at her mischievously. 2 words came out of her throat, crazy. The princess was dead. When the servants carried her away, they were so overwhelmed by the stench that they staggered. Bang a sound, the princess fell off the wooden plank. The servants only heard a very small crack 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 sound, her carbonized skin was cracking inch by inch. The princess opened her mouth wide, her eyes filled with horror. Immediately after that, swoosh a sound, her stomach collapsed, her skin cracked into pieces. Black liquid spread everywhere, wetting her clothes, her body was broken in half. The princess screamed. The scream rang out, then suddenly stopped. The entire Yen mansion was alarmed. The Prime Minister personally came forward, commanding people to carry the princess into the coffin, wash away the dirt, then stuff the coffin with salted fish. Quickly send it to the outskirts of the city. As a compassionate little Buddha, I sincerely recited the Buddha's rosary and chanted sutras for the princess's salvation. It was still the Ksitigarbha Sutra. Just the first 200 words. No one paid anyway. Yan Fan stood beside me, and when he saw me leave, he chuckled and followed me. From that day on, the Yen mansion became much quieter. The princess's death did not cause any big stir, the emperor acted as if this daughter had never existed. Yan Fan's concubines fought for favor, occasionally giving me small amounts of gold. Madame Yen would kill people, regardless of whether it was the Prime Minister's concubine or Yen fans. Whoever disobeyed would die an unnatural death, then fast and recite Buddha's name, giving me a large amount of gold. The Prime Minister was obedient and entertained guests, from the capital and from far away. Chests of gold, silver, jewels, calligraphy, paintings, and jade were carried into the Yen mansion without stopping. Every time there was a harvest, he would send someone to call me into the warehouse to choose for myself. Only Yan Fei, he was bustling around everywhere. Going to casinos, going to brothels, buying and selling official positions, taking personal advantage, forcing people to give bribes, and even robbing women, forcing wages to work as prostitutes. Yes, he was a male dog. I heard from his concubines that, despite his lame legs, he could spend the night with many women at the same time. He liked to order people to bring me some strange toys. A walking wooden duck, a person molding his image, an exquisite hourglass, a 9-link necklace, a Luban lock. Rosewood, ebony, agarwood, pearls, coral, bones. Buddhist beads. There were also all kinds of jewelry and clothes that were popular everywhere. I wasn't very interested, and was afraid that he would do something bad, so I usually threw them into the box. I was very busy. I was busy making money, nurturing confidants, opening small wine shops, tea shops, cosmetic stores, silk stores, brothels, silver shops. Building my own small business empire. As well as practicing martial arts in the small Buddhist temple in the Neum family. So many years have passed. Not a single day has passed since I first transmigrated. I promised the person in the wine jar with his arms and legs chopped off that I would avenge his entire family. I didn't do it. One is because I can't fight back. Yan Fei has a shadow guard by my side. He is a real expert, the kind who has learned martial arts in the martial arts world. Normally he doesn't appear and doesn't attack. 2 is because my power is not strong enough. Even if I'm lucky enough to kill Yan Fei, I'm not sure I can escape the pursuit of the Yan family. I don't want to be pursued. That's life. Enjoying is called living, suffering is just existing. One day, Yan Fei returned happily, saying that he had heard from the Fei people a method of immortality, drinking the blood of a young girl, then bathing with the blood of a young girl. He showed me a new blood collection device that he had invented. 2 iron plates were covered with long nails. The mechanism moved, the 2 iron plates would press against each other, underneath was a long groove to drain the blood. Just put the person between the 2 iron plates, then rotate the mechanism, then the fragrant blood will flow out along the groove. Fast and fresh. Yan Fei had a look of enjoyment on his face. I saw blood stains on the iron plate. It was obvious that it had been used before. The fishy smell of iron and the fishy smell of blood mixed together, faintly enough to make me nauseous. I frowned, my face full of displeasure. He was even very surprised. You don't like it? I thought you would like it, so I purposely brought it back for you. I looked at him with disgust. Normal people don't like it, okay? He asked back, are you an ordinary person? I was actually left speechless by his question. He lifted my chin up, his thumb gently rubbing my chin. So beautiful. What will happen when I get old? I shook his hand away, coldly spitting out 4 words, are you looking for death? He smirked, his eyes filled with amusement. I looked at the iron plate again, imagining the scene of him being pressed into a meat pie by the iron plate. Not pretty. 3 days later at night, I walked past the flower garden, heard the cries, screams and groans coming from the wine cellar, and followed the sound. The guards at the door were not ordinary henchmen, but Yan Fei's shadow guards. Can I go in? Young master said, I won't stop young lady. The wine cellar door opened, the smell of blood mixed with hot air blew into my face like mist. People, who haven't killed for a long time, especially hate these smells. Yan Fei lay comfortably in the wooden bathtub, holding a cup in his hand. The red bathtub was blood. The sparkling cup was also blood. He glanced at me, leaned forward, blood flowing down his wheat-colored skin. There seemed to be a hint of sweetness in the air, not just the pure smell of blood. I couldn't help but lick my upper lip. "You're here?" He waved at me. "I've been waiting for you for a long time. Come here, enjoy with me." I smiled and walked over, placing one hand on his shoulder, my fingers sliding across his soft skin, then gently massaging, as if caressing. "Enjoy what? Have you used the bath water?" "How could that be?" He smiled, his eyes filled with indulgence. "You must change the water. I've saved the best for you." The best he was talking about was referring to the 7 or 8 young girls huddled in the corner. Only 12 or 13 years old, truly in the prime of youth. They were obviously extremely scared, but their faces were red. Above them, the iron plate with long nails was tightly closed, in the middle was the body of a young girl with holes pierced through it. Below her, the remaining blood flowed along the blood groove, dripping into the wooden tub where Yan Fei was bathing. Drip. The blood rippled. "You really don't know how to cherish women. Just cherish you." He placed a hand on my hand. "Xia Shi, I've always been waiting for you to grow up." This development was a bit unexpected. "Then you can take a comfortable bath. Remember to use clean water to wash yourself later. I don't like to sleep while still smelling this." He understood what I meant, and drank the cup of blood in his hand. I took the cup, and poured him another cup. "I'm much younger than you, you have to take care of your health." He drank it all again. I smiled and left. The man's terrified scream came sooner than I expected. I just stepped out of the wine cellar. Boom. Swoosh. Boom. 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 The man smashed the wooden barrel, blood flowed all over the floor. He kept hitting the tables and chairs, screaming outside, "Someone! Catch her! Yan Fei was poisoned. Corpse poison." The last cup of blood I gave him had mixed with the corpse poison in the princess's body back then. It's just that, after being refined by me many times, it became colorless and odorless, and more toxic. I knew what happened in the wine cellar. My natural reaction was faster than the shadow guard. While they were still wondering who Yan Fei wanted to catch, I pop 2 palm strikes on their chests. The 2 of them died on the spot. Yan Fei was naked, staggering out. When he reached the door, he was exhausted, bent over, one hand holding onto the door frame, looking at me in disbelief. "Why?" he roared. The black mark on his abdomen was spreading at a speed visible to the naked eye. I glanced at it and found it really ugly. This upgraded virus was too overbearing. Not only did it spread quickly, it also lost its special function of blocking people's sense of pain. In other words, Yan Fei could clearly feel the rotting of every part of his body. Painful to the point of living a life worse than death. I leisurely adjusted my shirt, and asked him in the most innocent tone, "It's just killing someone, why do you need to ask why?" A trace of pain flashed in his eyes, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. "All these years, how I treated you, can't you feel it?" I found it strange. "You mean, the things you gave me? It's not that valuable, according to the Yan family's resources, it's not to the point of heartache." Before I could finish, he roared, "I'm waiting for you to grow up." This sentence was the second time he said it tonight. The first time, I simply understood that he was craving my body. This time, I felt. Maybe, perhaps, roughly, he wanted to express his feelings for me. I winked at him. Yan Fan in the book, besides himself, didn't love anyone. Unexpected. Unexpected. Young Master Yan, love is a poison that pierces the heart, don't you understand this principle? Now I understand. He held his stomach, gritting his teeth. Then why is it? There's no antidote for this poison, you have to let me die clearly. I looked at the growing crowd of guards and archers. Even the Prime Minister and Madame Yan had arrived. Madame Yan cried and said, Xiaxi, why is this? Our family treats you well. To be fair, it really isn't bad. Without Nia Mansion, there would be no tavern, tea house, cosmetic shop, silk shop, brothel, silver shop of mine. What a pity! I am not a person of this world, and I am cold by nature, and I once promised someone that I would avenge my entire family. I looked at Yan Fan. Many years ago, Yu Zhong, Duyuan County, you killed the entire family of the county magistrate, do you still remember? Who is Yan Fan? Not only does he have a phenomenal memory, he is also extremely intelligent. In a blink of an eye, he responded, you are Song Yi's little daughter. Song Yi was the original owner's biological father, who was turned into a pigman that year and died in that wine jar. I nodded. Yan Fan still did not want to believe it, but her name is Song Xing. She has a weak personality. She doesn't even dare to talk to strangers. I once had someone draw her portrait. Absolutely not someone like you. It turned out that he was not without suspicion, and had already investigated. It's just a pity that in this era, there are no cameras. What people draw is usually only similar in appearance. I am a strange soul, unable to change my facial features. What changes is my personality and temperament. The poison on Yan Fei's body had spread to his chin, then down to his ankles. He resisted, and the last sentence he said in the mortal world was, we have similar personalities. I once thought that you were given to me by the heavens. I glanced at him. Who has a similar personality to you? I'm not a pervert like you. Hearing the word pervert, he suddenly laughed. Brilliant. The blackness spread inch by inch, all the way to the top of the head. Crack. Yan Fei was the only son of the Yan family, an exceptionally talented person. Madame Yan went crazy. She screamed miserably, rushed to Yan Fei, knelt on the ground, ignored the possibility of the poison infecting her, and scooped up handfuls of black water and burning coal. Fan. Fan. The Prime Minister pointed at me, screaming at everyone, kill her. Kill her. Countless arrows flew over. I suddenly broke the string of Bodhi beads, a handful of Bodhi beads shot out, and a group of guards fell down. All these years, my martial arts were not practiced for fun. 108 Bodhi beads took the lives of 108 people, including the Prime Minister of the Yan family and Madame Yan. The Yan family truly bled like a river. The young girls came out from the basement, trembling and kowtowing to me. Yan Fei's concubines cowered in the corner, no one dared to avenge Yan Fei, and no one thanked me. I don't care. In this world, I'm just a traveler, just here to play, you guys go. From now on, go your separate ways. I've long been financially free, wanting to live my poetic and ideal life. Some people bowed slightly to me, returned to the yard to pack up their things. Some people left directly. Some people looked at the Bodhi seed on the corpse's forehead, stunned. What are you thinking? I remember the young master once commented about the young lady having a demon in her heart, transforming into a Buddha. The Niam family was exterminated in one night. The emperor was furious, roaring to investigate the culprit. After that, there was no after that. I sat in my wine house, drinking all the best wine in the world. One day, I saw an extraordinary handsome man, in terms of appearance, not inferior to Niam Fien at all. Suddenly, I remembered, I was in a book. The male and female protagonists of this book just met this year. It seemed like I had already destroyed their final boss many years earlier. End.